Okay, so first thing we see is the big Star Wars logo. It's like, bah, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, you know, the usual whatever. Then we got the title crawl as usual, and it's like Star Wars, The Force Awakens. You see this planet, and then it gets absolutely dwarfed by this gigantic Star Destroyer. Like J.J. Abrams is trying to be like, we're going to be like the old movies, but we're going to be bigger and better. So then they cut down to the planet, and this guy named Poe is talking to this old guy. And the old guy's like, here's a map to Luke Skywalker. And he's like, thanks, the general is going to like this. And it's like a hint that everyone already knows. And the old guy's like, to me should always be royalty. And it's supposed to be like a wink to the fact that it's Princess Leia. But now she's a general. So either way, Poe is like, oh, awesome, I have this map to Luke Skywalker. Hey, BB-8, my cute little droid that's going to replace R2-D2. You should take this map. And she does. BB-8 takes it. Then the bad guys show up. You know, like a bunch of TIE fighters and stormtroopers. And Poe looks at BB-8 and he's like, you got to go find Daisy Ridley. She's probably down here on Jakku. She'll help you out. Then Kylo Ren shows up and he's like the new Darth Vader. And he walks up to Poe and he's like, hey, Poe, where's the map to Luke Skywalker? And Poe's like, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you. And he's like, all right, I'm going to interrogate you on my spaceship. And he tells all the stormtroopers to kill everyone. And this one stormtrooper is like really hesitant. He's like, I don't know if I want to. I don't think I can do it. And he doesn't. So then we cut to Daisy Ridley and she's hanging out on Jakku. And she's a scavenger. You know, she's scavenging all sorts of different ships. But then she finds BB-8 and BB-8's getting captured or something. Daisy Ridley helps out and they hang out for a bit. Then we cut to that super mega Star Destroyer where Kylo Ren is interrogating Poe and they're like, tell us where the thing is. And he's like, I'll never tell you. And Kylo Ren's like, oh yeah, you will. And he like uses the Force and gets the memory out of Poe like immediately. And like one of the stormtroopers was like, wow, that was pretty fast. Why didn't you just do that earlier? We've been interrogating this guy for hours and hours. So then Kylo Ren is like, take Poe back to jail. And then on the way back to jail, that stormtrooper from before shows up and he's like, hey, I'm gonna free you. Poe's like, what's your name? And he's like, yeah, my name is FN and then a bunch of numbers and stuff. And Poe's like, no, that's dumb. I'm gonna call you Finn. And he's like, yeah, cool, that's my name now. My name's Finn. So then they get on a TIE fighter, they escape, but they kind of crash land onto Jakku. Then at this point you think Poe's dead because he's just not there. But he's not dead. You'll see him later. Don't worry about it. So now Finn's the main character and he's kind of wandering around and he eventually makes his way to Mos Eisley, the trading post where Daisy Ridley is. She's hanging out with BB-8 and BB-8's like, hey, that guy's wearing Poe's jacket. And Daisy Ridley's like, oh, did you steal that jacket? And for no reason, Finn decides to start lying now. And he's like, yeah, I'm with the Resistance. And she's like, that's so cool. And then some TIE fighters show up. They start blowing everything up. And they're like, we got to escape. Hey, let's take the Millennium Falcon. So they do. They get on the Millennium Falcon, but it looks like it's been abandoned for a really long time. So they escape and they fly away and they're having a good time. And then suddenly some really giant ship shows up and captures them. And they're like, shit. And then like you think a bunch of bad guys are going to pop up and it's Han Solo and Chewbacca. And he says the thing from the first trailer. He's like, Chewie, we're home. Because he's really old. Like he's like 90 years old. And like it's really clear Harrison Ford doesn't even want to be here, but he's getting paid. So then Daisy Ridley and Finn pop up and they're like, hey, are you guys Han and Chewie from Star Wars? And they're like, yeah, it's us. And Daisy Ridley and Finn are like, hey, we have to go get to the Resistance. This droid has a map to Luke Skywalker. So at this point, Han Solo could have easily been like, oh yeah, my wife runs the Resistance. So let me give her a call. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he's like, let's go to this planet with this really cool bar. If anyone can help you out, they're going to be there. And the second they get there, half of the people there call the Resistance, the other half call the Empire. It's like Han knew that there was just going to be a huge fight and he just wanted to screw with them or something. I don't know. It's weird. So they're hanging out at this bar and Daisy Ridley's like, I gotta use the bathroom. She finds a lightsaber in the bathroom and she puts her hands on it and she has this weird flashback where she sees like Luke trained Kylo Ren killed a bunch of people, he's a bad guy now, whatever. And the lady who runs the bar is like, hey, that was Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Did you have some like trippy Force vision or something? And Daisy Ridley like freaks out because she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't do Force stuff because like when she touches the lightsaber, it awakens her Force powers. So she kind of freaks out. She runs into the forest for a little bit. Then the bad guys show up with Kylo Ren and he finds Daisy Ridley and I guess he senses that she knows something about Luke Skywalker. So he's like, yeah, she has what we need. Let's take her. And like one of the stormtroopers is like, yeah, but that BB-8 robot's right there. That's the thing that has the map to Luke Skywalker. We can grab that too. And Kylo Ren's like, no, this is fine. We got it. Daisy Ridley knows everything we need to know. She's probably seen the map. Then we cut to Finn and Han Solo and Chewbacca. They're being attacked by stormtroopers. You remember earlier Finn was like, I can't kill these people. It's wrong. But he picks up this lightsaber and he immediately is like, yeah, I'm gonna murder all these stormtroopers. And one of them even knows him. Like he's like, hey Finn, buddy, what's going on? And Finn just like stabs him in the chest. And he's like, woo, lightsaber. So whatever. Kylo Ren gets away with Daisy Ridley. And then the Resistance shows up and you see Poe and Finn's like, hey, how are you still alive? And he's like, it doesn't matter. And then Princess Leia shows up and her and Han have some banter back and forth. Like she's like, yeah, you're a terrible father. And he's like, haha, yeah. And while all this is going on, a bunch of the bad guys are at Starkiller Base. And that's this weird like base that's a gun, that's a planet. And their leader is like red-haired Hitler. And red-haired Hitler is like, we're gonna kill trillions of people right now. And they do. He like pushes pushes a button, they launch some lasers into space. And this is just another example of them trying to be like, remember the old movies? Well, this one is way bigger and way cooler because instead of blowing up a single planet, they just blow up 5 planets. They kill trillions of people in like 2 seconds. So then we cut to the Resistance base. Han and Chewie are there with Finn, Princess Leia's there, BB-8's there, and she's like, hey, I got the map to the thing. And they're like, we don't care about that right now. All we care about is Starkiller Base. And someone's like, hey, what is Starkiller Base? And they pull a map up, and one guy is like, oh, hey, that looks just like a Death Star. And once again, they have to call out how much bigger and better they are. Poe is like, no, that's not a Death Star. See this tiny dot? That's a Death Star. Starkiller Base is like a trillion times bigger. So as you can see, it's completely different. And someone's like, yeah, but it's a space station that blows up planets, right? Like the Empire can't come up with anything other than a ball that blows a planet up. And someone else is like, yeah, but I bet this one doesn't have some fatal flaw that makes it really easy to destroy, right? And Finn is a former stormtrooper. And he's like, actually, it is super easy to blow it up. We just need to like throw some grenades inside the generator. The whole planet's going to blow up. There's no backup power. Everything on this base will get completely destroyed if you just blow up this one core. Trust me, it's going to be like the easiest thing in the world to blow this up. Oh, and also, it would be cool if I could go and Han and Chewie could go with me and we could pick up Daisy Ridley because I think she's on that base. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. That sounds great. Get going. So they do. They land on Starkiller Base. So while this was all happening, Daisy Ridley was hanging out with Kylo Ren and he's like, I could train you. And she's like, why are you wearing that helmet? And he like takes his helmet off and he's like, it's because I want to be like my grandfather, Darth Vader. And she's like, your grandfather was Darth Vader? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to finish what he started too. And she's like, what's that mean? I thought he like turned good by the end. And he's like, no, he was a bad guy like me. So then Kylo Ren leaves the room and Daisy Ridley is like, I think I'm getting a hang of these force powers. Hey, Daniel Craig, could you get over here for a second so that I could force persuade you into unhooking my handcuffs? Then Daniel Craig's like, yeah, sure, here's the keys. Have a good time. And he leaves. So she starts sneaking around the base. So then she turns a corner and Finn is there with Han and Chewie. And she's like, hey, what are you guys doing here? And Finn is like, we're here to rescue you. So then Han is like, oh yeah, we got to throw some grenades in the generator. Don't forget. Daisy Ridley and Finn, you guys go up to that balcony part. I'm going to go down to this lower part. And Chewie, you kind of like go off somewhere by yourself for a little bit. And everyone's like, yeah, this sounds like a great plan. I'm sure nobody's going to die in the next scene. And Han walks onto this bridge and his son Kylo Ren is there. Han calls out to him and that's when you find out that Kylo Ren's real name is Ben. And it's really confusing because it's like, oh, did they have this baby and decide, hey, let's name him after Luke's martial arts teacher? That guy seemed really cool. I never actually met him and you only met him for a minute or two, but I think it's worth naming our son after him. So Han Solo is like, hey, Ben, you gotta come back with me. Your mom's really mad at you. And then Kylo Ren's like, screw you. And then he just impales Han with a lightsaber. And this whole time, Daisy Ridley and Finn were watching from the balcony. And they're like, no, that guy we just met. We're so upset. So then Kylo Ren's like, hey, what are you guys doing up there? I'm going to chase you outside so that we can have a lightsaber fight in the snow. So they do. They get in the snow. Finn kind of flails the lightsaber around for a few minutes. Then Kylo Ren knocks him out. Then Daisy Ridley like force grabs the lightsaber. And then they start fighting. So then at the same time, Poe and all the different pilots from the Resistance flew into the base and blew up that one core on the base. So the whole base starts falling apart. And Kylo Ren and Daisy Ridley stop fighting. And they're like, oh, we got to get to our own respective ships. So they do. They all kind of fly out of there and escape. So then we got back to the Resistance base. And R2-D2 wakes up. And someone's like, hey, R2-D2, you've been asleep the whole movie. Why did you wake up? And R2-D2 is like, well, we only have 5 minutes left, so I figured I'd make an appearance. And him and BB-8 connect. And they're like, oh, our powers combine. Here's a map to Luke Skywalker. The whole movie has been about the Resistance trying to get a map to Luke Skywalker. And they're like, hey, Daisy Ridley, we know we all just met you, but why don't you go alone with Chewie to meet Luke? Like, why wouldn't Leia come along? Whatever. So Daisy Ridley flies off with Chewie. They get to this island, and Daisy Ridley's like, hey, Chewie, just stay on the ship. So then she walks up the side of the hill, and instead of saying anything at all, she just looks at Luke. He like turns around, takes his hood off, and she just takes his old lightsaber out, holds it up to him, and she just stares at him, holding his lightsaber out to him. No words, nothing. Luke looking a little bit confused, her just kind of looking confused too, and they're both kind of like, hey, how much longer do you think we have to hold this pose for? Roll credits.